What is up, guys? How are you doing? Matt Fleming 86 is saying he needs to do headshots for church, and so he's asking about lighting gear. He wants lighting ideas. He's got a speed light and then a diffuser, which is, I guess, about 3 inches by 3 inches. Okay, so the main idea here is you want to try to get the light source as big as possible. If you have a small light source, if you just start with the one flash on top of your camera, that light source is so tiny. It's this big. And it doesn't make nice looking shadows. It doesn't, it's more of a harsh light, and especially the place it's coming from this almost the same exact spot that you're taking your picture. The lens is here and the light is here. That's also not good. So starting out with lighting, this is the main place where I see people trip up. They think that if they can just put a small little diffuser on top of their flash that's doing something, but it's really not doing that much. Essentially, the two problems that you need to solve are: how do I get my light bigger? What can I do to just get my light source to be bigger? You could shoot your flash backwards into your assistant's white shirt. You could have somebody hold up a reflector behind you, and you shoot the flash back into that reflector. You use a pie tin to try to reflect it off the pie tin to get it to be this size instead of this size. You could use a piece of mail. You could use a blanket. You could use a wall. You could use a ceiling. You could use anything that would bounce back a color of light that wouldn't be too harsh. Like if you had something that was like hot pink, maybe that wouldn't work to try to use as a flash source. But anything close to white that would reflect light that's bigger than what you started with will give you a more soft light. And that is part of the trick. That's half of the trick. And the other part is getting the light away from where you're taking your shot. You're taking your shot here and the light source is here. That's a deer in headlights look. It's not flattering. And we can see depth by seeing shadows. If we can see shadows, then we can see depth really, really well. So when you take your light and you put it off to the side, that casts a shadow. If somebody's nose on my face right now, you should see I have a little bit of depth to my face. I've got a light up here, and then I've got a light here that's hopefully giving me some catch lights in my eyes. But getting that off to the side, it gives the facial features or whatever else you're shooting more depth versus if you had the light coming straight at the subject. So number one, make your light source bigger. And number two, get your light source away from where you are. Now the farther away it is, like not farther as in is it 2 miles away, but like the harsher the distance it is from you, like well, first of all, if you get the light source behind your subject, you know what that's going to look like. But off, if the light was off to the perfect right side of the subject, if you're the subject and I'm taking a picture of you and my light source is over there, it casts the harshest shadow. It's just going to hit the side of your face, and you may not, this side of the face might even be completely dark. If the light was it was coming from this side, it hit the side of my face, and then this whole side of my face would just be completely black. That would be the most kind of dramatic use of that. I typically put a light off like this, maybe 45, or right now that's more like 90, but it's kind of a bad example because this is a white room, so everything's bouncing off of everything. If there were no ceilings or walls, all this white behind me, this lighting would look totally different, because the part of the reason why it's ambient is because it's just kind of bouncing around and there's a ton of white. But just keep those two things in mind. The next time you use a light, try to assess, how do I get this light bigger, and then where is the light source coming from? Now if you have multiple light sources, turn lights off. Turn lights off so that you know what you're working with. You really have to start from somewhere. Start from a place where you can really control what you have. So where you just have one clean light. I'm going to show you some examples of how this room looks with different light. This is without that front light, just that that guy over there. And then we're back with both on, and I turned off the ceiling light, which actually happened to be a different color. It was more orange. And these lights are they're more blue, I guess, maybe a little bit of green. But they're not super blue. They're not super cold. They have some warmth to them. That's another thing too. When you're shooting with lights, if you're shooting with multiple lights, please make sure that you're not using different colors, because if you have different colors of light, those clash. And especially if you have one light coming from this way and one light coming from this way, then the shadows that are created will they'll actually be different colors. The shadows will be different colors, and then that's super hard to edit, because you just don't want to have to you essentially want the same tone of light through the whole image, because then if you need to bring the image cooler or warmer, or however you want to change the white balance, all of those colors go together to the new spot. But if you have two competing colors, if you have a more blue light and a more orange light, which you didn't intend, then as you bring those up or down, that disparity still exists between those two colors. So it really, it's just not a good idea it's just not a good idea to combine light colors, because it's just gonna take away quality from your image, unless what you're trying to do is use those dramatic colors to actually just paint the image. That's fine. But if you have just inside, if you have a fluorescent light on this side and a super incandescent orange over here, you're probably not going to like the way that will edit, because you're going to be fighting one way or the other. If you try to make it bluer on this side to pull down the orange, then you end up pulling the blue to blue. And if you're going the opposite way, you want to warm up this side of the face and make this a more orange, then this side that's already more orange, because the incandescent light was over here blasting that orange, just gets even more orange. So you can't do what you need to do to clean up the image. If you have never thought about this before, then start right now just looking around and trying to assess different colors of light. What color of light is fire? You can see it's so orange, right? You can look at the moon and kind of see it's got a more bluer tone, or you see, street lights where they're, maybe super orange or super green or something like that. Just try to notice those different colors, and then those are kind of big variations where you obviously can see, okay, this fire in my hand is super orange. Like, that's just blatantly obvious. But then when you go inside your house, it gets a little bit trickier. Some of these bulbs, they have a bluer tint, but it's not crazy different than orange, and you can get adjusted to it. So just start there. I'll see you in the next video.